Good afternoon. I'm MJ from Lioness Publications, and in this session, we're going to look at Israel. I've held off doing Israel because I did want to do Palestine first. I wanted to get a sense of where they were heading in this peace deal. It seems like Palestine is, they're on a road, it's bumpy, there are some twists and turns, but, at least up until next year, it seems like it's moving in the direction that everyone sort of thinks it might. Israel was a little different. I'm seeing in Israel's chart, I'm seeing some aggression coming up, and that's next year. Either aggression towards them or from them. And I also, when I do the charts for Israel, I'm just sort of sensing that the peace deal is, again, no one really sees the peace deal everyone signed today. So we don't know what's really going to be done. But it is allowing Palestinian people to go back to Gaza City, maybe start a rebuilding. For Israel means that they're not going to be bombing anymore. But I wonder what the Israeli people, feel about this. It seems that, they still have the enemies out there. Hamas is still there. Iran is still out there. So they're still vulnerable. And I'm not sure if the peace deal, approaches anything here that Israel might need going forward. Of course, they got the hostages. I mean, that's incredible. They're getting, any Israeli people that were left in the territory are coming back to Israel. So that's really important. But I'm getting a sense of just unsure uneasiness when it comes to the chart of Israel. And I haven't done the leader's chart for a while, so I might actually go back and do his. But I'm seeing, sensing some dissatisfaction, and maybe again, someone striking out or they striking out at someone else. So with that in mind, let's take a look at what's going on with Israel. First, what we have is right around 10:30, we've got Neptune, which is retrograde, actually in conjunct the ascendant. What's Neptune? Well, it makes things very foggy, makes things unclear. And this is one reason why I'm thinking, what is in this agreement that's being signed for Israel? Now, it means from an Israeli standpoint, since it's retrograde, they're going to be reassessing their ideals. There's going to be some loss of trust because I'm not sure if the Israeli people are happy with, number one, how long it took to get the hostages, and in effect, what they traded for that. So there's a lot here that, the nation itself has to come to grips with. The narratives that the government's going to be putting out are going to seem hollow. So I think most people don't trust the leader. At least that's my impression. And he is on trial for corruption. Or he was tried. I'm not sure how that is. I haven't been up to date on what his status is. So in some ways, maybe the nation is sort of deceiving itself, or the people are deceiving itself. So there's just a loss of trust in what's going on. Now, in 1112, we have Uranus also in conjunct the ascendant, and this is also retrograde. So normally this would be like electric bolts going off, but it's an inconjunct. You can't get there from there. So, there's no innovation here. It's like things need to move ahead, but people are sort of restless. There's just a national anxiety about what's going on. And people are going to be resisting reform. So, depending on what is in the peace talks, the nation of Israel may not be quite compliant with going along with what's expected of them. Now, on 1220, we have Uranus square Mars, and this is also retrograde. Now, whenever you have Mars, you have to look at what planets are involved, because that's when you have aggression, you have, control issues. In this case, what is it? Unpredictable aggression. Now, we're not sure if it's directed at Israel or if it's Israel directed at someone else. And it does indicate that there was some momentum for something, but that sort of got blocked or choked off. There's a sense that the Israeli people are not happy, and there may be some suppressed rebellions going on. So there may be protests at this time that the government is probably going to try to taper down. And they're not going to be happy with the leadership. Now, again, this is retrograde, so we may not be seeing much of this on the surface. A lot of it is bubbling underneath, but you're going to see the bubbles come up. Now, as we move to 1231, we have Pluto. Pluto is squaring the midheaven. Midheaven is the status of that country when it sort of comes to all the other countries, and it's also an indicator of the leader of the country. Pluto is upheaval usually. Can be nice upheaval, sort of like reform, transformation, or it can be difficult. A square is difficult. So this indicates that there's probably some type of shift in the power structure of the country. So maybe they're not happy with the leader. Maybe there's some stress here, and the leadership could actually collapse. Now, one thing about when Pluto is opposing that point, it's actually on the inverse, entering the house of home. And this is significant because that means that there's going to be some involvement here with the homeland. And it could have to do with the boundaries. So this might be pointing back to the Gaza piece, or it might be something entirely different. Now, next thing we have is Uranus in conjunct Jupiter. Jupiter is what? That's things we benefit, our opportunities. What's Uranus? The unexpected, the sudden. In conjunct, we can't get there from here. So there's things that they should be able to profit from, to make, transform things, maybe with the technology, but they can't get there. And a lot of this, and because of this, they're going to have policy shifts. It could also indicate that there's some undercurrents here that sort of undermining that national optimism. Jupiter is also legal issues, so it could be legal reversals. And Jupiter is also things like diplomatic relations, so it could be sort of changes, unexpected changes to that area. The next thing we look at is Neptune in conjunct the ascendant, but now it's direct. So now the fogginess is more apparent, and that's going to be around 118. So the start of next year starts to be just a little, little changes coming up. So in this case, there's a distorted image of what has been happening. So it could be people were expecting one thing and now they're getting another. And that's going to mean confusion. It's also diplomatic confusion. So maybe allies are not sure what to think here. The government is likely to be evasive. Again, Neptune is fog, it's confusion, it's a vision, but in this case, it's a vision we really can't get to. And there may be some indication that some of the alliances that are being made, there's no reason or there's uncertainty as to why they're being made. Now, the next thing we have on 121 is we have Saturn squaring Jupiter, and this is direct. So in this case, we've got Saturn, which is what? It's the structure of the government. Think of it as the walls. But in this case, it's square. So it's stressed. It's difficult to do anything here. It's on a harmonious angle. And this is to Jupiter, your opportunities. So in effect, the structure of the government or the country is not allowing it to have full use of the opportunities that might be presented. What does this mean? It means that there's going to be changes in policy. There's literally some growth potential, but they end up having to have cuts to the budget. So possibly corruption here. So when we're having things squaring Jupiter, sort of government, stuff like that, might be corruption sort of sneaking in here. Could also indicate a leadership crisis. Next thing we have on 128, we have Saturn in conjunct Mars, not being able to act. So in this case, focus, Saturn is focus, direction, Mars is action, but it's an inconjunct. Can't get there from there. So whatever they want to act on, they can't. So it means they're frustrated. Conflict over things like defense plans and maybe bottlenecks. Those bottlenecks could be between the military and the leadership. Mars can sometimes be military in a country chart. So definitely something to start looking at when we see the military and we've got angles that are difficult. Now we have Saturn in conjunct descendant, and that's on 2/12, February 12th. In this case, Saturn is the structure, trying to put structure in. But if you can't do that, if it's an inconjunct, which this is, it means it's what? Restraining. When it's restraining, it's like cracks that are showing up. So too many pressures, external pressures, maybe rules, regulations for the country, and it starts to crack a bit. But the cracks are underneath the strength of the country. So in effect, it means that, yes, it's strong, but it's cracking. Now, credibility starts to be eroded here. Also, delayed progress, and in some cases, it could be stagnation. Depends on how long the Saturn sits around on the ascendant. Next thing on 2/12 is where I start to get a little worried. In the solar angle, and again, the solar angle may not be as exact as I'm noting it. I have it down for 2/12, but it could be plus or minus a month, 6 weeks, something like that. We've got Mars squaring Pluto. Mars aggression, Pluto control. So is this aggression from them? Is it aggression on them? Hard to feel, hard to identify, but it is conflict. So you have upheavals, things that are not being able to be controlled. Assertion of the force, and it's force meeting force. So here we have some indication that there is some type of conflict, and military might be involved, or force. We don't know which direction it comes from and where it's heading. Next piece we have is on 2/24/26. In this case, we have got Uranus in conjunct Jupiter. Now here we have, and this is direct in this case, which means we're going to start seeing the results of this. So unpredictable policy shifts. So Uranus, that's unpredictable. Jupiter is what? Things like the legal, the diplomatic channels, this case, disruptive alliances. Next one we have on 3/6, and we haven't really, I don't think we've had one in any of the charts we've done. Maybe we have, and I just don't remember, but we've actually got Pluto, which is opposing the moon. And one of the reasons we may not have hit it before is that for me to use the moon angle means I have to have an exact time of birth. And we do for Israel. Now, in this case, what's Pluto? Well, Pluto is, again, that, that transformation or the destruction. Depends on the type of angle, and this is an opposition, so it's a destruction. What is it trying to destruct? Moon, which is the homeland. So in this case, we've got power struggles. And what's it relating to? It's relating to the homeland. Could be territorial concerns. So again, could be back to Gaza, or maybe something else. Could be Hamas, could be Iran, maybe another country. Also, moon is also ancestral type of identity. So it could have something to do with the cultural identity of the country. Now, when we move to 3/11, we have Pluto now in conjunct Venus. Pluto, again, difficult angles. That means what? It is literally breaking things down. What's it breaking down? Venus, which is social communities. So think of your, social network. Could be things like, little stores, cafes, things you go to have, social time with people. It's also communities in general. So in this case, could be economic issues coming in, but adjustments are going to be hitting here. 3/20/26, we have Uranus squaring Mars. This is, again, a difficult angle. Uranus is the unexpected, square is difficult, Mars is what? Conflict, aggression. So this suggests some type of civil unrest, military, possibly impulsive leadership decisions that lead to some type of revolt, could be strikes. So between around 2:12 up to about 3:20, we've got indications that there's going to be some type of conflict, aggression, but we don't know whether it's at them or if it's from them outwards. It could be something that goes at them and then they respond. It could be the other way. Okay. Now, the last thing we see is that on 3/26, Uranus is actually moving into the 8th house. 8th house is, in a country chart, it's what that country has shared resources with other countries, in effect. And that would be things like banks, legal frameworks, their participation in the global community. So in this case, that's going to undergo some type of shift. So it could be that it's a conjunct, so it's not really, positive, negative. It just is. So it's going to undergo a shift. So we'll need to see what happens at that point. It could be a shift where other countries come to its aid. It could be the reverse. Other countries come back and say, oh, you shouldn't have done that. Now, I know this is long, but I wanted to get to this point. There were a lot of angles to cover, just like with Palestine. But this tells a little different story than what Palestine's did. Palestine does have some things at the end, I think it was around May or so, where it indicates there is some, maybe crisis coming in. But we've got a few crisis points in the Israel one. And as I noted, I had a feeling of the peace deal is signed. But and it's notable that the leader of Israel didn't go to Egypt with all the other leaders. So I forgot to note that at the beginning. So I think that's important when we look at how this peace deal moves ahead. Now, with that, I hope you enjoyed this. And I'm sorry it's long, but I needed to cover all these pieces at one time so we can see sort of the steps on what's happening with the country. And we'll probably come back sometime early next year and see if some of these issues that we're seeing with the leadership are actually coming out into public view. Have a good one. Bye now.